Hello, my seventh grade peeps. Money, 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 money. Money. Makes the world go round, right? Today we're going to talk a little bit about money there. It looks like the guy's got a $100 bill on top of a whole bunch of ones. So it looks like he's got a lot, but it's only about 200 bucks there, maybe 300. Yeah, he's not as rich as he thought he was. But still, that's plenty of money. Let's talk a little bit about money. First off, we need to understand what a surplus and what a deficit is. That is the basic building block of any financial budget or financial anything, surpluses and deficits. If you have a surplus, you have more money than you started with or more than what you need. If you have a deficit, you don't have enough of whatever it is that you need. So some people have a surplus of talking. Yeah, we know. We all know how that goes. But if you have, say, you need to have $10 to get into the movies and buy something to eat, and you have $15, you've got a surplus. You've got $5 extra. Say you're going to the movies, and it's going to cost you $10 to get in and get something to eat, and you only have $7. You are at a deficit. You do not have enough money for what you need. And that obviously surpluses and deficits will dictate what you can and can't do going down the road. All right, so please know what surplus and deficit mean. They're very, very, very key economic terms we need to know. Okay. There's a few different types of taxes we got to know about. There's a property, excise, income, payroll, and tariff. They are all different types of taxes. We'll do more on this next year, to be honest with you. We'll get a little more specific into payroll and income taxes. But for now, we'll talk real quick about these things. An excise tax is a tax that's on a specific item. So, for example, there's something called a hotel motel tax. That's a tax that is specifically on hotel stays. So if somebody stays in New Hampton, they actually pay a little extra money towards the hotel motel tax, and that gets distributed back out here in New Hampton and Chickasaw County for betterment of tourism type stuff, among other things. Sometimes there's a specific tax on tickets. So like I know I've been ordering some baseball tickets for this summer. In some places, they charge a specific tax for entertainment. Let's see. And those taxes oftentimes are, there's a lot of different reasons why they have them, but generally speaking, to raise money. Property taxes, that's tax on anything that's owned, on land that's owned, I should say. So your parents would pay property taxes. At this point, you wouldn't because you're not old enough to own land on your own, I don't believe. So you're not paying property taxes, but no doubt your parents definitely are. So any property that is owned by an individual, they're going to pay property tax on that land, and it's going to be a certain percentage of what that land is worth. A tariff is a tax on stuff that's brought into the country or exported, usually brought in, imports. Usually a tariff is put on a product to protect the producers of a same or similar product in your own country. For example, there might be a tariff on cars to protect the American auto industry. We can talk more about that later. Income, we also talked a little bit about the income and payroll tax. We'll get to those a little bit later on. Like I said, cover that a little more specifically next year. An income tax or payroll tax basically is a tax on money that is going to come out of your whatever you make when you go to work. Payroll taxes, generally speaking, are immediately starting out with what we call FICA, which is the federal insurance, yada, 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 like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Income tax is the general tax that you pay to the government based on how much money you make. Okay, now, what's a budget? It's knowing how much you have to spend, and it's a planning tool. Okay? We know that, and so that's where you see like a pie chart like that. I have $5, or I have $10 or $15 in my pocket. I know I want to get into the movie. That's going to cost me $5. I know that the pop and popcorn combo at the movies is going to cost me $5. I can afford to spend that. Plus, I've got $5 extra to pay for the Uber ride on the way home or whatever you need. Now, around here, not so much an Uber, but that's what it is, okay? Or maybe it's a little bit tighter budget. I've got $10 and I know that I can't buy anything extra because I need $5 to be able to get into the movie and $5 to buy the concessions combo that I want. I don't have money to spend on anything else. I'm creating a budget, all right? And it doesn't matter what it is, who you are. Budgets exist in a lot of different places. Family budgets, business budgets. Every business has a budget. The government has a budget. We won't talk about how well they stick to their budget at the federal level. At the state level, they're required to stick to it. They can only spend 99% of what they bring in, so they have a 1% buffer. So, budgets are a big deal. My guess is you've probably learned about this before. If you're going to go to Washington, D.C. next year, you're probably going to want to start getting used to having a budget. You know, if you're going to go for an 8-day trip, you might want to budget out an equal amount or a semi-equal amount of money for each day. If you're going to take $200 on an 8-day trip, it means you've got $25 a day that you can spend. Not that you necessarily need $25 every single day on the trip, but that's how that would break down. Things to think about. Okay? When you look at this, the amount you spend is in red, the amount you make is in blue. We've got some problems here, right? When you look at, say, 97, you're spending more than you're making. How do you make up for that $20,000 or whatever, or 20,000 vehicles? Or then you can see in 1999, you're making more than you're spending, so you have a surplus, right? This thing here is shows how whoever this, and granted this isn't actually money, this is number of vehicles in thousands, but if you use those lines, there's some deficits and some surpluses here. Hopefully you've saved enough in your from your surplus years to cover your deficits if you don't make enough. So if you have a surplus, what can you do? Well, life is good. You can build all kinds of extras, within reason, schools, military stuff, roads, all kinds of other things, at least on a government level. Or on a personal level, if you have a surplus in a house, maybe you can afford to go out and buy a new car. Maybe you can afford to invest in the stock market. You can afford to go to go on a vacation or go take in a couple of baseball games or football games or whatever. Okay? If you have a deficit, though, there's only three ways to deal with this, and all of them are going to have some unwanted side effects. All right? First off, you can spend less. Okay? If you have a deficit, you can spend less, which means that you're not going to get as much stuff. That's the side effect. You don't get as much stuff. 2, you can make more money. Well, as a government, that means raising taxes. As an individual, that means getting another job or selling stuff that you have, which means you're either going to be giving up stuff or you're going to be giving up time. And number 3, you can borrow money. The thing about borrowing money is you don't necessarily have to work. You don't have to spend time working. You don't have to get rid of stuff, but you now owe money on top of what you already are paying. And if you are borrowing money, you better have a plan for how you're going to pay it back. Which means you're going to have to increase your income later, or you're going to have to spend less later to cover those the payment for that deficit. All have a side effect that are not necessarily wanted. All right. So when we're dealing with deficits, it creates a lot of hard decisions. Why? Who wants to pay more money? Who wants to give up things? And that's the thing that we run into. When you hear people arguing about taxes and government spending and whatnot, everybody likes low taxes, but everybody wants all the services. Well, you don't really have that option. You either have low taxes and less services, you have high taxes and more services, or you have more services, low taxes, and a ton of debt that will eventually have to be paid back. Those are really the three options that come up. And that's the problem. It's a hard decision on what decision to make. All right. With a tariff, we talk about this. There's two reasons. Number one, it puts the burden of making money on someone else. In other words, it's protecting your home businesses. Or excuse me, that's the second reason. Actually, number one really also should include it's done as kind of punishment against companies. You heard about Donald Trump with the trade war probably last year. That's kind of what he was using against China. They were putting tariffs on goods that were coming out of China, and China was then putting tariffs on goods coming out of the United States. Then the other one is to protect American merchants or whatever country you're in. If two cars are essentially the same price, if two cars are essentially the same, they're from the same class, a 4-door sedan, and the Chevy costs $19,000 and the Mitsubishi costs you $16,000. Which one? I mean, some people say, no, I'm getting Chevy because I'm loyal to Chevy, and that's fine. But if you don't care about brand, you're probably going to take the cheaper of the two if they're basically the same car. So what do I have to do? Well, that's where I got to put some type of a tariff on. And if I put $5,000 on the Mitsubishi car, the tariff, that's going to get passed on to the consumer. That's going to make that car cost $21,000 now instead of $19,000. All right, that's what I got for you today. The next thing you're going to be doing is a little budgeting activity where you're going to build yourself a house. You got $100,000 to build a house, which, by the way, is not even close to what you'd have to spend in today's money. But basically, here's what's going to happen is you're going to get $100,000 to build a house. $60,000 is already locked up in just the lumber costs and the pipes and the wire and all that stuff just to build the place. All right? Which means you've got $40,000 left to put in stuff that you think is important. You're going to build a budget for what you think you want to do. You can work with one partner, and that partner is sitting next to you. All right? All right, let's get after it, folks.